Senator Van Hollen, one of the things I think is exhibited by Mitch McConnell's comment is the bankruptcy of Mitch McConnell and Republican ideas about what to do, about how to help this country in this unprecedented situation.
Well, that's right, Lawrence. Look, I disagree with a lot of things Senator McConnell says, but this goes down as one of the dumber things he's ever said. If you look at his proposal, it would drag our economy down faster and further if you really were going to say to all these states that have been hit hard by the coronavirus, just declare bankruptcy. And as Governor Cuomo has pointed out, those are the very states that have been the engines of federal revenue that states like Kentucky have used to help support the people of the state of Kentucky. So McConnell really stepped in it on these remarks, and it looks like now he's trying to backtrack.
Senator, what are you looking for next? The Senate's going to reconvene, I think, in about a week. What do you think should be the next steps that the Senate considers in how the country fights this pandemic?
Well, I think at the top of the list has to be assistance to state and local governments. Essentially, what Mitch McConnell was saying the other day was to our first responders, to our firefighters, to our police, to those on the front lines, we're not going to be there for you. We, the federal government, we're going to be there for big corporations. We're going to be there for the airline industry. But we're not going to be there for those who are on the front lines. Congress has got to do that. We've got to come together. These states are losing revenue for the same reason businesses are losing revenue. People aren't walking in the door, and that's generating less revenue. This is the time the federal government needs to help those who are on the front line. So that needs to be a big part of it. We also need to really get serious about creating a national supply chain and production of testing equipment. Today, the president came out and unveiled his so-called testing regime. All it was contracting the challenge out to the states. It was just more sort of hocus pocus. What we really need is for the federal government to invest in production capacity to get these supplies. So those are two things that really need to be in the next round.
And what about oversight of what the Congress has already done? We're hearing stories about the small business program that are just outrageous.
Yeah, I'm glad you raised that because we did make some important changes in this most recent bill that passed last week. You'll remember Mitch McConnell tried to rush through a replenishment of that fund without any additional reforms or strings attached. Fortunately, we said no, we will replenish these funds, but we need to direct a lot more funds through local lenders, community lenders, to really help the moms and pops who were left out of round one. So we're hoping that will be helpful. There are some other reforms that should have been made as part of this recent bill that were rejected by the Trump administration and Secretary of the Treasury Mnuchin. So we're going to have to go back to that because otherwise we may continue to see stories about how the well-connected, those who have connections to the biggest banks, are first in line when, in fact, we need to make sure this money gets to where it's needed most.